Okay, this video is going to show you how to use vcarve Pro as a drawing tool. You can draw two-dimensional shapes that can be cut on the ShopBot, or actually they can be cut on the plasma cutter, ShopBot, or laser cutter. In this specific video, I'm going to be focusing on using the laser cutter for the intro class for making perhaps a claw for your ROV. So first off, we're going to open up vcarve Pro. If you haven't opened up vcarve Pro before, you're going to have to find the password and username so that you can get the software running. That's a different video. So we're going to go to create a new file, and under job setup, I'm going to set up the dimensions to match our laser cutter. So it's 24 inches wide by 12 inches tall. Material thickness in this case doesn't really matter because we're not going directly to that. But we'll just leave the default. The XY datum position, just so you're thinking about it, for the laser cutter, it's in the upper left-hand corner. On the ShopBot, we usually put the datum in the lower left-hand corner. So depending on which machine you're going to, you'd want to make note of that. So for the laser cutter, I put it up there. Hit OK. Remember that this white rectangle represents the entire area of the laser cutter. We are not going to be using all of that for this part that we're making, so we're probably going to be zooming into the upper left hand corner. Under edit, we're going to go down to where it says snap options. This allows us to set up a grid to make it easier if we were going to do a simple drawing. We don't have to necessarily measure everything. So I'm going to go to snap options and set them to snap to the grid, and set my grid spacing at 1/4 of an inch. So I hit OK. Okay, we're ready to start drawing our claw. I'm going to grab this tool right here. It's the Polyline tool. And I'm going to start drawing. Notice there's a ruler on the side here, so this represents 2 inches. We can also actually enter values for our line as we draw them. It's telling me over here what the length and angles are as I draw them. So I'm going to draw something, try to represent something that looks similar to some of the hooks that you might be making. Okay, I only drew one line. We need some thickness to this. Now there's a couple ways for me to do that. I could just continue to draw with my Polyline tool, or there's a tool down here where you can offset an existing line. So mine is highlighted, so if it wasn't, if I click over here, it's no longer highlighted. If I come back here and highlight it again, I could go offset, and let's say I want to go inwards, and I want my claw to have a thickness of 3/8 of an inch. So I could type in 0.375 and hit OK. Oops, I did that the wrong way. I guess that interprets it differently than I saw it. So I just offset it the opposite direction. Close that, no big deal. I'll take this one and delete it. And now I have this set of lines that are a set distance away, and I'm going to go ahead and modify my claw a little bit. I'm going to grab my Polyline tool. Notice that as I hover my mouse over the end, it changes from one center mark to kind of a square with a center mark that tells me that's going to click right on the end of that line. And then I'm just going to draw a straight line down like this and hit OK, and come over here, grab that tool again. I'm going to click right on the end of that and right onto the end of that. Now you can see I've got a little extra here, and I don't want that, so I've got a pair of scissors over here. I'm going to come in and just trim those out. There's also some other tools in here that are helpful. There's a measurement tool if we wanted to figure out how far it was. If we didn't remember what our offset was, I can just click on here and click over to here and say, what's that distance? Oh, that's 3/8 of an inch, or close to it. I didn't snap my ruler in exactly the right spot. I'm going to undo so that's not sitting there. So we can get some measurements on there. It's also a nice tool for adding little rounded edges. Fillets tend to add a lot of strength, so I usually, and to take the sharp points away so you don't cut yourself. So I'm going to go over here and create some fillets. We can set the radius of our fillet. I'm going to leave mine at 1/8 of an inch. And as I hover over those corners, you'll see that I'm going to get a little bit of a rounding going on. Maybe not. What's going on here? Okay, I think I figured out why that fillet tool was only working on these lines and not these lines. So we're going to show you a little trick that's important. If I click on these segments, notice that this segment is not joined to this segment. So I'm going to go ahead and select the whole thing, go over here and hit join to make sure that all of those items are one. Now when I click on the line, the whole thing is joined, and I have a feeling if I go back and use my fillet tool now, things will act, yeah, there we go. That looks a little better. Come in and round things up a little bit. All right, that's looking good. Now, for the intro class, guys that are making these claws, they might be attaching them to Lego parts. So I'm going to go ahead and draw some holes that will allow us to attach them to our Legos. So I'm going to draw a hole here. The size of the hole is really critical, and we can enter that right here. Make sure you have diameter selected, and the hole size, if we're cutting into Luan, turns out to be a perfect fit if we type in 0.1818. And if we hit apply, that'll make that hole the right size. So now I can come down here and I can move that hole around a little bit if I want to. And I've got a spot. Maybe I can move it in a little bit further. The move tool is actually this guy right here. And we can move it so it looks centered. Maybe I need another linkage out here to operate my claw, so maybe I could just take that hole and I can just Control C, Control V for paste. Now I have two of them. I can put it over here, or I could just draw another hole if I wanted to. Don't know if I need that or not. If you are doing a series of Lego pieces and you needed to get them to be exactly the right distance apart for multiple Legos, let me show you how you would do that. So let me do that instead. I'm going to delete that hole. I'm going to select this hole, and I am going to use my linear array. I've got this circle selected and I hit my linear array, and I'm going to change the number of rows to 3 and the columns leaving at 1. Columns are going to create it this way. Rows are the horizontal. Make sure you're set to offset, and the gap, the offset is just going to be in the Y direction because we're creating rows and it's only one column. In here, I'm going to type in 0.314961. I think it's going to round that. No, it didn't. I hit enter, and I've got my 3. I'm going to close this out. Now, it's important that we don't move these because this is the space that is exactly the distance between the Lego pieces. So I'm going to just select these are already selected. I'm going to come over here to my move and rotate, and now I'm going to come out here and I can take this whole set and rotate it. Haven't changed the spacing at all, and I can pull them in here. So now I've just created 3 holes that are perfectly spaced for Legos for my arm if I wanted to use that. Go ahead and select this whole thing. Maybe I want another copy. So there's several ways to do that. I could just copy it. Or I could use the mirror tool just to show you what that looks like. And there's several ways to mirror it. I could create a mirrored copy and keep the existing one by going right like that. That's an easy way to do it. I could also go left, or go up, or go down. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to go right here. And if this material, well, obviously it's a laser so it can cut close, but if we wanted to conserve material, which is always a good idea, I'm going to select all of this, make sure I select the whole thing because we don't want to move them independently, and maybe I want to start to nest these things together so I don't waste as much material, and then I can move the whole thing down a little bit. Okay, maybe I have another piece for my part that's kind of a U-shaped piece that's going to allow my linkages to create. There's any number of pieces that you can draw. We can cut them out of a bunch of different materials. I don't want this, I think this video's run a little bit long already, so I'm going to wrap it up with a couple more steps. First off, I'm going to hit save. I would definitely save this to my folder. And in my case, I think my folder is on my C drive. Maybe not. Under users, dairy, I don't have a folder. There, I have my video production folder. I'm going to go to new IT, and in my IT folder, we should have an ROV project. I believe you already have that. So I'm going to save this as my ARM. Now we've got one more step after this, because this is a vcarve file and our laser cutter likes Illustrator files. So I'm going to go to File, Export. This is kind of like saving a toolpath. I'm going to select selected vectors to AI for Adobe Illustrator. Well, I need to select my vectors first. Then I need to go to Export, and we're going to put it in my same folder, and I can call it, actually I'm going to call this one WD, because the laser printer it's good to have your initials in front of that. It's going to be our protocol. Hit save. We're going to put this file, both files actually, on a flash drive and bring them over there, and we should be able to cut them out.